Want to work in wildlife conservation but don't have a science background? Watch to the end of this video to find out how you can.
Lions roaring in the morning sun, searching for a longer day.
For careers advice and behind the scenes of working in conservation, subscribe to my channel, click on that bell notification, and you'll get a little message when I release a new video every Sunday. Do you want to work in wildlife conservation but don't have a science background? By the end of this video, you should be able to see the possibilities that are out there and that are achievable for you. People assume that you have to have a science background to work in conservation. Conservation is a huge field. It's a huge growing field with loads of different job roles. I think people just have a picture of you being out in the field and doing a lot of hands-on work, and that it's all science-based, and that's not true at all. There are quite a number of roles that are not only possible but critical to conservation. So there's a lot of prospects for people in other kind of job types or job roles to kind of come into conservation and use their unique skills to help with conservation. Conservation is bigger, much bigger than people realize. A conservation organization is pretty much like any other organization. You need a lot of different moving parts to keep it going. I'm gonna start with one of the main areas and critical areas of conservation, which I've seen people with a completely opposite to a science background kind of getting into, like a more of a arty, literature, English kind of background, and that is fundraising and PR and marketing. And I know all these are kind of different roles. Like, I'm just gonna lump them together because my videos tend to be quite long, so I need to be a bit more snappy, I think, in some of them. Without getting the messages out there, there's going to be no money. No NGOs would have any money. No one would be doing any conservation unless there was donations, unless there was support, unless there was money coming in. I know a huge amount of people who work in the comms department, fundraising departments. They've had amazing experiences. They visit remote areas. They've got to understand the projects because they're writing about them. So they get exposure and understanding to the conservation issues. I know a number of people who have come here with no science background at all, but they've got a history of working in comms. They've got fundraising background, photography backgrounds, and they've been able to spend just as much, if not sometimes more, time like with the wildlife and taking pictures and writing up stories. I mean, it's not an easy job by far. It's not easy to get people to part with money, but it's definitely a way that you can work in conservation without a science background. And I might input some kind of jobs that I've seen on offer. I mentioned in a previous video that I get a weekly kind of email update from environmentjobs.co.uk, and it has kind of quite a few different jobs in there, and I see loads of fundraising jobs all the time. Fundraising, comms, PR, for really wide, big organizations, small NGOs, one's in England, one's abroad. Like, every charity, every NGO, every conservation organization has that department. So if you're a good writer, a good photographer, and have a huge interest and passion in conservation, then steer your experience that way. And I've mentioned this in many videos before, but volunteer. You can write blogs, show evidence of your work. I've made kind of good relationships over the years with some of our major donors, comms people, and they've had fantastic experiences. Got to travel so many places, and be exposed to a lot of different projects, like not just one project. Like if you're in a comms role in a big organization, you're gonna be busy and you're gonna get exposure to a lot of different things. So much of what conservation organizations do rely on funds and fundraising departments, and I think sometimes in smaller NGOs the importance of that can be neglected because you're so busy actually doing the work, but you need to spend time in communicating that work into attracting more funds to be able to extend your reach and achieve more. IT specialists, conservation is screaming out for IT specialists. Like, these are tech wizards, app creators, finding kind of novel ideas to conservation issues. And I find that IT specialists sometimes come in and think outside the box and can speed things up sometimes. In today's world of conservation, the possibilities that technology can bring to it are endless. The next one is looking at education, community. Conservation is, it's not even really about wildlife. It's just as important to consider, if not more, to consider community and education. And I mean, it's why we have kind of a holistic approach to conservation in GRI, that we have the Wildlife Rescue Department, that we have resource protection, and then we have community outreach, because it's more about people's views and land and policies and what's actually happening on the outskirts of these areas that can affect conservation in the areas. You know, environmental educators, it's kind of two different sides. You've got the environmental educators that are, say, in zoos or in the UK, and they're really talking about conservation to visitors there, or school groups, or they go into schools, whereas the in kind of situ education and community outreach on the kind of the edges of protected areas, it's a little bit different. There's like so many things that are being done, and I'm actually going to link the community outreach section of our website for kind of an overview of what that kind of looks like as well, and how you get exposure to conservation through that. A former colleague of mine, she started off on the education side, the community side. She would definitely say that she got very involved in kind of hands-on conservation as well, in terms of even the Wildlife Rescue Department, because she lived here. I mean, she helped with rescues, and she was very much involved in a lot of things, and now her kind of role has changed a little bit, that she's kind of involved in everything now. I would say that she, you know, she didn't come from a science background. She did do her master's, so she did go to university, but the point is that it's not a science background. Cover also the other kind of side of our holistic approach to conservation is looking at anti-poaching, and people from a military background, retired military background, people who've been injured, looking for a kind of new career path but still using their skills, often end up working in anti-poaching units. We've had ex-policemen working in anti-trafficking, dog trainers working with detection dogs, and none of those are science background, but they really are on the front line of conservation. Okay, I've got a few more. I'll try and move through them a bit quicker. Any that you want me to expand on in more detail, I'm happy to do other videos about them. Just let me know in the comments below. Second is volunteer supervisors, volunteer coordinators. I've known quite a few who've not had a science background. They're just very good with people. And you almost need more of a hospitality background. And actually, previously I changed my kind of job descriptions that I would write for volunteer supervisors, because often you would get very science animally background people, which aren't always good with other people. They kind of prefer the company of animals than people. I'm including myself in that. Recently, I've really kind of stressed the hospitality, lodge jobs. That's generally what you need, because you can train a lot of the other things, but to be innately kind of happy around people and enthusiastic, I feel actually that's pretty hard to find. I've known quite a few people who have no background in science, no background with elephants, and they've just ended up kind of getting into those roles and being really good at them. I've seen loads and loads of jobs for volunteer supervisors and volunteer coordinators in the UK and abroad. The next one I want to talk about is kind of ethical conservation travel. There are a lot of travel companies, travel agents, tour operators, and safaris are always popular. What's getting more popular is the kind of conservation-minded travel, and people aren't just wanting to go on holiday anymore. People aren't wanting to just go on holiday anymore. They're wanting to maybe pair up holiday with volunteering. They're wanting to get exposure of conservation on the front line. They're wanting to make sure that their money is not just going into a business pocket. They want it to like help these organizations. They're animal lovers, there's conservation lovers, and they've got jobs, but they want to spend their kind of 2 weeks or so having a holiday that's a little bit more meaningful. I've got friends that run a great organization called Travel Jar, and they're all about kind of responsible tourism and giving to conservation projects, supporting conservation projects where they've built kind of a lot of connections with them in the past. I'll link them below. And they've got a really good understanding of conservation on the ground, and they want to pass that on to their clients. The husband and wife team that run that, but neither of them come from a science background. They met here in Zambia actually. They've always been kind of doing a lot of fundraising distantly. They wanted to be a lot more involved in conservation and decided to start a business to do that. If you think of a normal office, you have your financial department, you have your HR department, you have your procurement department. All of these exist in a conservation organization. So you might have a financial background, and just the jobs that you choose to do, the conservation organization settings that you're in, you then have exposure to conservation, and you're using your skills and your experience, but you're not just working for any organization. You're working for an organization that you are invested in, that you're interested in. Everybody in our organization has had exposure to our field locations. They understand a lot about what's going on, like, no matter what role they're in. They don't have a science background. I think the last kind of option that you have as well is to get a different job, well-paid job that's not in conservation, and make lots of money. And then when you have lots of money, then you put that into conservation. And I've known people who have no background in science or any experience with conservation, but they've had money and they've been able to be fortunate enough to visit projects and choose who they want to support with that money. Like, if you become a major donor, you have a say in what happens. You get reports, you understand the day-to-day struggles, you understand what's going on, you understand what direction the organisation has moved it, and you have a part of that. There are ways to get in conservation. I mean, you can win the lottery as well. Obviously, these are going from I think the most likely to the least likely that would happen to you. My point of this whole video is that conservation is not just like a narrow, hard to get into, you're never going to be a part of it thing. You can be. So just tailor your experience of whatever job role you're currently in. Back to the fundraising one, I had a friend that, although she was worked in the comms and fundraising department, she actually did an online course in elephant welfare and behaviour just to understand it a little bit better. And those kind of things show your kind of passion for a certain industry, and you can start to kind of channel your way into that industry.
There goes a snake.
Where?
Down there.
Oh, I haven't finished my video. I got distracted. So that's the end of my video. Thank you for watching. I hope that has given you some ideas and some things to think about. Are you in the shot?
Yes, I'm in the shot.
Say hello.
Hello, goodbye.
So yeah, subscribe to my channel, click on that bell notification around. I'll also link to anything that I think will be useful in the description below. I hope this video has been useful for you and has given you some things to think about. Please hit the like.
Bye-bye.
Please hit the like button if this has been useful for you, and share it with someone who you think might benefit, someone who might not realise how many jobs there actually are in conservation. Have a good day. Thank you. Bye. So you get informed. Are you eating from my plate? There's nothing on there. The bird that you can hear is eating like the tiny scraps of stuff on my plate. The 2 plates that I didn't wash when I did the rest of the dishes. Cheeky. Okay, you're gonna need to go now because I need to film and you're making too much noise. Go on. Go. Hey. Okay, go. Go. You're not listening to me. Not listening at all. I'm a cat. I'm a cat. Go away. Now you're he's balancing on the fork now. Go away. Didn't go far. I've got another guest down here.